I never thought a quiet neighborhood like Pinebrooke Estates would become the battleground for one of the most brutal legal wars I'd ever fight. I'm not a lawyer by profession. I'm a civil engineer by trade and a stubborn son of a gun by nature. That combination proved dangerous to people who thought they could walk over me. It started with a letter, harmless looking, crisp white, neatly typed, the kind you get from your dentist or your kid's school. Only this one was from the Homeowners Association, and it came with a thinly veiled threat. Dear Mr. Trent Maxwell, your property has been found in violation of Community Code 4.8b regarding unauthorized exterior modifications. You are hereby requested to remove the above-ground workshop within 14 days or face daily fines and potential legal enforcement. That unauthorized exterior modification was the modest but sturdy workshop I built in the back corner of my 10-acre lot. I'd had that workshop for over 15 years, long before Pinebrooke Estates ever existed. In fact, back when I bought this land, it was nothing but forest and dirt roads. I cleared it. I surveyed it. I built my home from the foundation up with my own 2 hands, and I never, not once, signed any agreement to be part of Pinebrooke's HOA. But somehow, they'd annexed my land. At least, that's what they claimed. The fine print of their letter made it clear. They believed my property now fell under their jurisdiction. The HOA had grown like a weed over the years, gobbling up adjacent plots, and mine had been one of them. Or so they thought. They didn't know my secret. See, while they were building luxury homes, erecting gates, and planting flower beds, I'd been quietly paying taxes and renewing an old document no one seemed to notice. The mineral and land rights deed for the entire 35-acre tract. That included not just my lot, but the very ground under half of Pinebrooke Estates. They built their HOA on my land. When I first moved out here in the early 2000s, I bought a large, oddly shaped piece of land through a bankruptcy sale. It was cheap, unkempt, and mostly considered useless. I took it anyway. Something about owning raw land appealed to me, a place no one could tell me what to do. Over the years, as development crept closer, I sold a few edges of it off. Small slivers for driveways, access points, and utilities. But I never sold the central 20 acres. I just leased access temporarily to keep people happy and the checks coming. The land wasn't subdivided properly, though. Most builders and buyers didn't realize that their homes rested partially, or in some cases entirely, on land they didn't legally own. They just assumed the developer took care of everything. Turns out the developer had made handshake deals with the wrong people and skipped a lot of paperwork. I kept quiet. I didn't need drama. I just wanted peace. Until the HOA showed up at my door. The next visit wasn't a letter. It was a clipboard-carrying Karen named Cynthia Westwood, president of the Pinebrooke HOA. She wore pressed beige slacks, a tight bun, and a permanent look of disapproval, like her soul fed on minor violations. Mr. Maxwell, she began, stepping past my no trespassing sign without a blink. We need to talk about your non-compliance. That structure violates sightline guidelines and contributes to property value depreciation. I raised an eyebrow. You mean my workshop? The one that's been here since Bush was president? That doesn't matter. As of last year, the boundary realignment placed your land under Pinebrooke's protective governance. I grinned. Really? Who owns the land beneath this protected neighborhood? She blinked. Excuse me? I didn't answer. I just walked inside and shut the door. That night, I pulled out my files. I had a full safe of them: plat maps, mineral rights, original land deeds, tax receipts going back 20 years. I scanned copies, labeled everything, and got in touch with a friend of mine, Keith Dalton, a real estate attorney who'd helped me once before. "Keith," I said, "remember that land rights issue we talked about a few years back?" "Yeah." It just became real. Over the next few weeks, things escalated fast. The HOA began issuing fines, first $50, then $100, then $250 a day. I ignored them. Then came a notice taped to my door. They intended to seize my property under Pinebrooke Code 9.4b, an obscure clause that allowed the HOA to initiate foreclosure on non-compliant members. Only I wasn't a member. I filed a cease and desist through Keith, attaching copies of my ownership documents. The HOA ignored it, so I escalated. We filed suit in county court under civil trespass, malicious harassment, and unlawful encroachment. I named the HOA, the developer, and 5 individual board members, including Cynthia, and that's when they panicked. Court day was glorious. Cynthia arrived with a high-priced lawyer who looked like he spent more time in a golf cart than a courtroom. They expected a nuisance case, a cranky landowner with a vendetta. What they got was a meticulously documented presentation with maps, contracts, drone footage, and surveys that showed one undeniable truth: I own the ground under their homes. 32 homes in total sat partially or entirely on my land. The courtroom went silent when Keith dropped that on the judge. Cynthia turned white as a ghost. Their lawyer asked for recess 3 times. The judge granted us an injunction preventing the HOA from taking any action against me pending full review, but I wasn't done. I approached the developer next. Turns out the original land leases had been structured poorly, and worse, several homes had been financed based on flawed title work. That made the banks nervous, and nervous banks don't like bad paperwork. Over the next 2 months, 5 home sales fell through. 2 homeowners sued the HOA. Panic spread like wildfire through Pinebrooke. Town meetings were flooded. Board members resigned. Realtors stopped showing the neighborhood, and I watched from my porch with a cold beer. By midsummer, the HOA offered to settle. Their idea of settling was to pay off my workshop's removal fine and issue an apology. I had other plans. It's funny how fast people change when their comfort is threatened. When Pinebrooke Estates found out their luxury homes sat on land they didn't technically own, the panic was electric. I started getting letters, not from the HOA this time, but from individual homeowners, pleading, offering money, asking if they could come to terms. Some were polite, some were desperate. Some tried to threaten me with social pressure and neighborhood boycotts. I ignored most of it. The ones who respected the situation got responses. The rest? Well, they were about to learn just how deeply the rabbit hole went. Keith and I filed for formal partitioning of the land, backed by survey data and original records. A judge quickly granted a temporary hold on any construction, alteration, or sale of properties in the disputed area, pending investigation. That halted nearly every real estate transaction in Pinebrooke. 3 homeowners were mid-escrow when the ruling came down. All of them walked away. The HOA's reputation was now radioactive. I wasn't being petty. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was focused. They tried to legally destroy my home, my life, my quiet retreat in the woods. And now the legal machine was working in reverse. grinding their structure to dust. But the true coup de grace was yet to come. A few weeks later, we got the results from a private land use audit I'd commissioned months earlier. The findings were as bad as I expected. For them, several homes had not just been mistakenly built across boundary lines, they'd been illegally connected to water and sewer systems that ran through my land without a formal easement. Utilities, in legal terms, are a ticking time bomb. The moment I discovered that, Keith's eyes lit up. "You have them by the throat now," he said. That very week, I filed notices of termination for the utility easements. Legally, I had every right. They were temporary, unrecorded, and had lapsed 5 years prior when the original developer went bankrupt. No one had renewed them. No one had even noticed. And now, with the HOA scrambling, their lawyer admitted defeat on that front. I gave them 30 days. 30 days before I cut the lines and shut down the water and power to half of Pinebrooke Estates. I didn't actually want to do it. I just wanted to watch the flames of bureaucracy consume the people who thought they were untouchable. Cynthia came back. She showed up on my porch, makeup smudged, hair frazzled, demeanor utterly changed. She brought with her a proposal, one the HOA had voted on unanimously. "We'll relinquish all claims on your land. We'll void every fine, rescind every complaint. We'll dissolve the HOA's jurisdiction over your property if you allow the utility easements to stay in place and lease the land beneath those homes." She was practically begging. I read the document. It was decent. A lawyer had finally done something right. But I had one more surprise. I turned the paper over, then slid a counteroffer across the table. "I'll agree to the lease," I said, "under one condition." "What?" she asked. "I want the HOA dissolved, not just off my back. Gone. Wiped clean." She looked stunned. "You can't." "I can. And I will. If you don't agree, I'll tear down your infrastructure, force every homeowner into emergency negotiations, and auction rights to the highest bidder." She blinked. "You don't want to be the villain, Mr. Maxwell." I smiled. "I'm not the villain. I'm the landowner." 2 weeks later, Pinebrooke HOA held an emergency vote. Under immense pressure from homeowners, lawsuits piling in, and the looming threat of infrastructure collapse, they voted 87% in favor of dissolution. Pinebrooke Estates was no longer governed by an HOA. A week after that, we signed a lease agreement. I became the official landlord of the 32 homes that sat on my dirt. Each home paid me a monthly fee, modest but steady. Utilities were formally re-easemented for a price. Ironically, Cynthia stayed in the neighborhood. She resigned from the board, dropped her role, and took up watercolor painting. I'd see her sometimes walking her dog past my workshop, which now stood proudly, untouched, behind a fresh white fence. I didn't fine her for the leash violation. Some months later, a real estate journalist picked up the story, called it "The Quiet King of Pinebrooke," wrote a whole column about how one man used land rights and legal knowledge to outmaneuver a corporate HOA structure. I wasn't seeking fame, but I appreciated the sentiment. The neighborhood changed after that. Gone were the daily notices, the drive-by photo patrols, the weekly reminders to pull weeds. People planted what they wanted, painted their mailboxes red and blue and green. Kids played in driveways again. Pinebrooke became a neighborhood, not a gated prison. And me? I kept my land. I kept my home. And I gained 32 rental checks a month without building a single extra structure. All because I knew the ground I stood on and refused to be pushed.